So welcome to this video, and in this video I'm going to read to you my latest piece of writing, which is called Returning Home. So one of the biggest parts of humanity's problem is this. There are so many of us who just don't like rules. We don't want any restriction or control. We don't want to be prevented from doing whatever we choose, whenever we choose it. And we want complete self-autonomy, which is perfectly understandable, of course, because nobody wants to be a slave. However, in our strong desire to resist being controlled, we push away all authority, including the deeply loving authority of God. And we forget how good it is to have a loving and caring authority watching over us, guiding us away from all danger, towards the fulfillment of our heart. This is exactly what God does, I assure you, if we follow his day-to-day guidance and stick to his plan. Because if we were to relinquish our total self-autonomy, i.e. our desire to be in complete control, and we put our life in God's hands, then we would never experience darkness, inner pain, or sadness ever again. We would step into a place of unshakable peace and deep joy. This is what God actually wants for us, yet we continue to resist his guidance out of pure stubbornness, pride, or perhaps sheer disbelief in his existence. But the truth is that we don't really know where all the dangers lurk in this world, especially the unseen spiritual dangers, of which there are many. But God does know, and he wants to guide us away from all the harmful things that we might be tempted to move towards. Unfortunately, many people interpret his guidance as oppressive control, as restriction, as you should do this and you shouldn't do that. But God doesn't restrict us. He has given us free will, and he lets us choose any way of living that we want to. But God has very clearly told us what the consequences will be for our choices. These consequences are not his punishments. They are just the laws of the universe, and we cannot escape them in any way, even by totally ignoring them, which is what many people do. Yet they still experience the consequences. God knows into which dark places certain things will lead us, and he encourages us to choose against such things, and he warns us of what we'll experience if we do choose them. This essentially is what a lot of the Bible is about: the choices of nations and the choices of people, and the consequences they experience for their choices. He has given us all of the information so we can make really informed decisions, and ideally steer clear of any unnecessary pain, darkness, and spiritual danger. However, we've allowed ourselves to be persuaded by those who are opposed to God and to his, and we have been persuaded to view his loving guidance as dictatorial control. We have been persuaded that restrictions are imposed upon us by an oppressive and angry God who is disappointed with our sinful nature and just wants to punish us unless we do what he says. But this is a lie, purposefully put out by people who don't want you to know what God is really like. He is not like this, I can assure you. The love that God feels for us is so very deep, and he is so very happy when he sees us moving in the right direction, closer to his love. He is so pleased when he sees us taking care of ourselves and caring for others. The deep caring compassion that we feel for others who are in need is the very same caring compassion that God feels for us. It comes from him through us. He loves us so very, very much and desperately hopes that we will choose to turn back into his direction. But he will not force us. We must choose this. He has laid out very clear directions along a very specific pathway to enable you to get back home to his eternal love. These directions, if you follow them exactly, will prevent you from straying off the path into some less than desirable places and experiences, which usually lead to to even more intensely undesirable experiences. You can actually avoid them all if you follow the specific directions that God has given us in love. They are like disciplines for your mind, heart, body, and for life in general. If we push them away, ignore them, or purposefully do the very opposite of them, we essentially throw away the map which was meant to lead us home. It is an extremely foolish and self-defeating thing to do, yet so many people do it. Are you one of those people? Have you closed your ears and your heart to his directions? Have you erased his moral guidelines from your conscience? Because this is why he gave us a conscience, and it never lies. However, we can override our conscience with our strong, rational thinking, which can find a way to justify pretty much anything. Listen to your conscience. Listen to God's word. They have deeply loving and protective intentions, and we do need protection from the things that we cannot see and the things that we do not know that lie ahead. We are all in this confusing labyrinth called life, looking for the path that takes us home to eternal love. God is watching over us and can see exactly where we are and which way we need to go. He has provided us with a map, which is his moral guidance. He puts obstacles in our way to prevent us from going down dead ends. Yet we often push our way past these obstacles, or we try and destroy them. He has also provided his very brightest light, Jesus, to lead us through the darkness. Do we accept it, or do we dismiss it, thinking that we can find our own way? Because we certainly do not have a light bright enough for some of the darkest corners that we can find ourselves in. If we were smart, we would accept the light on offer if we really wanted to find our way home and avoid the shady pathways that only lead us further into darkness. And unfortunately, there is a force that would like us to become hopeless, to get lost and remain in the darkness, so that it can take possession of our soul instead of us rejoining with God. Now, this is not a joke or a metaphor. This is a deadly, serious matter, the destiny of your soul. That force of darkness, whispers to us throughout our entire journey on this path, trying to get us to step off what is essentially a path of goodness, compassion, and purity of heart, a path of increasing selflessness. But he whispers to us that this path is boring, fruitless, too pure, and essentially going nowhere. He even convinces some of us that the destination that we are intuitively moving towards does not even exist, that God is not real, and there is no spiritual home that awaits us. These are all lies, I assure you. This dark force persuades us that he has something much more appealing, exciting, and immediately gratifying for us to experience, so that we will forget about our destination and also the journey of purification and wisdom that we are meant to be on. This is the journey home. Sadly, so many people listen to this voice of darkness. They throw away their map and they follow his path instead, which is a path of temporary material pleasure and increasing selfishness, and also increasing spiritual emptiness and darkness. This is how souls become lost, and it is the greatest tragedy to God. Please don't let the media convince you that God is a negative and controlling force, because it is totally untrue. Take it from someone who has a very close relationship with God. If you already believe the misinformation and the lies, then you have been very cleverly tricked, manipulated, and duped into feeling hostility towards your own loving Father, who loves you deeply and only wants to help you come home to his love. Turning you against your own loving Father is the very first thing that evil wants to do, so that it can destroy the precious bond that once existed between you. make you turn your back on the protection that God offers, and thus make you much more vulnerable to the forces of darkness. And instead of being possessed by God's love, your heart can easily become poisoned by the devil's anger and hostility and judgment and cruelty. And you essentially join the devil's resentful army of God-haters, which is not a pleasant fate, considering where you truly belong. Which side are you more on at the moment? Now, just as God created human minds, hearts, and bodies to feel the joy of being alive and the joy of being in love with Him, the devil wants to use your mind, heart, and body to curse the world, curse your life, to darken it with anger and misery, and to hate God. You actually belong in love, peace, and joy with God, by the way. But He will not prevent you from turning your back on Him if that is what you want to choose. Unless you ask Him to prevent that from occurring, which He will. That would be a very intelligent thing to do, because the consequences of choosing to join the team that opposes God are far from beneficial for your mind, heart, and soul. And they are full of darkness, to say the very least. Trust me, I have seen all destinations. I have very clearly seen where the path away from God leads to, and I turned away from it long, long ago, back towards my loving Father. On a daily basis, I experience and witness how real, attentive, loving, forgiving, tolerant, patient, and benevolent He is. He does not punish me because He understands me deeply. He knows that I want to be closer to Him, and He knows that sometimes things are hard and I come up against struggles and challenges, but He is patient, forgiving, and merciful. He lovingly sets me straight if I stray in a negative direction. But this is very welcome, because all I want is to move closer and closer to His realm of love and joy and peace, because my heart knows that it belongs there. You belong there too, my friend. Won't you accept the help that is being offered to you right now? Please turn away from the darkness. Please turn away from the anger and hostility, and pick up the map that will lead you home.